Hello and welcome to the No Nay Never podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley. And the Clarets are plodding along this season. A frustrating 0-0 draw at home against QPR. We're not scoring goals. We're not conceding them either, which is great. The Clarets sitting second in the league, but not exactly setting the league alight. I'm joined this week by regular panellists Rich Steele and George Poole. We're going to have a look at what's going on with Burnley's dynamic play and whether or not we can have exciting football at the hands of Scott Parker, or indeed, if we even care. Buckle up, listeners. Let's go. Rich, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, good, Natalie. I hope you're all good. Good evening, listeners. I hope you're all good too. And evening, George.
It's so polite. George, how are you, sir?
Yeah, good evening all. I'm doing well, thank you. Just wanted to take this chance to say thank you to anyone who's supported and retweeted the Clarets Trust video about the football governance bill.
Yes. Do you want to start with that, George? Plug it. Go ahead.
No, it's just a cheeky plug because we lost our Twitter account, unfortunately, 4 months ago because of various technical issues on X's side, not our side, may I add. So we knew we needed to get it up and running again, and the football governance bill was the perfect opportunity to say that was brought into Parliament and introduced. So that will go through its long process now of being brought into legislation, and the Football Supporters Association are the ones who deserve every bit of credit for helping with the fan-led review of football and leading to this point. So looking forward to seeing that make its way through Parliament, and thank you for everyone for following and retweeting the new Clarets Trust account.
There you go. He absolutely blindsided me then, Rich. We were just about to get into Clarets and George says, hang on a minute. While I'm here, I'm going to have a little bit of a plug. You know, he never gives me a head up with these things. He comes and goes on the podcast like he owns the shop, which he kind of does, to be fair. Now, where are we, listeners? Well, we are coming up to the second international break of the season. We're at the end of October and the Clarets sit second in the league. However, they've been doing so by essentially just plodding along in the Championship, hardly setting alight the entertainment barometer. But we are getting some consistent results, and we are looking very stingy in terms of conceding goals. There's a huge debate at the moment going on with Burnley fans as to whether or not results can override entertainment, or whether we really care as long as Burnley get into the Premier League at the end of this season. Rich, I'm going to come to you first because, again, the weekend's game against QPR was probably a game of two halves. First half, you felt that there was a much improved performance, particularly from Koleosho, who was a little bit more controlled in his attacking play. And we were pleased to see the number of chances we created in that first half. Let's ignore the second half now. Let's concentrate on the first half. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I think the first half was better, but I think it wasn't amazing, and I think we're only comparing that to previous games. There was a bit more intensity to the play. We did get in behind a little bit more. We probably should have been 1-0 up going into that half-time break. I thought we was going to break the deadlock when Roberts got in, but Steve Cook made a brilliant block on him. And you kind of felt, well, eventually we will break them down. But like I said, the first half was better. I thought the performance, I know I wasn't on the podcast, but I thought the performance against Hull was dreadful, if I'm being honest. And yeah, like I said, it's, you thought we was going to break them down, but it didn't quite materialise. And I know we're going to probably get into the analysis of it later. And you mentioned Koleosho there, and it's just not, he was a bit better, but it's not quite happening for him. And at the moment, I personally don't, people may disagree. I personally don't think it's for a lack of effort from him. If anything, I think he's trying too hard, and you can see he's getting frustrated. He's giving the ball away. Like I said, and I know we'll discuss the nuances of the tactics in a little bit further detail, so I don't want to touch on that now. So yeah, the first half was better, but let's be honest, it wasn't like we blew them away or anything like that. I think we're just comparing it to maybe previous performances.
Yeah, I think that's fair. George, were you expecting something different, considering we'd come on the back of 3 games before then where we'd not conceded any goals, but we'd had a couple of games where we're huffing and puffing a little bit and not quite getting over the line. But after the performance away at Sheff Wednesday, we thought we'd maybe turned a corner. So were you surprised actually that we didn't convert those chances in that first half?
A little bit, yeah. I probably expected a little bit more. I know the whole performance wasn't great, but I thought there was enough like bright sparks that could be translated into a better performance at the weekend. In particular, I really did like the look of Fleming, you know, at Hull, and I thought, despite the fact that we all know he's not an out and out striker, I thought having him from the start at a home game might give us a chance to really get at a team. And I think there was signs of that. I thought he used his presence well up front and certainly got himself about a lot more than we've seen from other strikers who've appeared for Burnley this season. But it just never really came together. Like Rich was saying, that the first half was better, and I think this conversation, needless to say, would be a lot different if a couple of things had fallen our way and we'd have gone in at 2-0 up, which, okay, maybe might not have been deserved, but certainly that Roberts chance was a really well crafted chance, and it was fantastic. Steve Cook had a really good game, fair play, but I thought Roberts was on to score there. So you think a couple of things might fall our way and we'd be having a different conversation now. But it doesn't mask the performance as a whole, because it wasn't good enough. And it's remarkable that we sit in second, to be honest. I think it's a bit of a damning indictment on the standard of the league and the disparity between the Premier League and the Championship these days.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And actually, I'll come on to that now, Rich, because I think that's one of the points that you made quite a lot in our group chat over the weekend, that it feels like a little bit that we're in a false number 2 position, in that, fine, we've managed to get enough wins and points. You know, we've only lost once this season. So, you know, that's not a massively difficult season so far, but there's been too many draws and not enough wins. But you feel like the Clouts can easily fall away from that position. We shouldn't get too comfortable that, well, it's okay, we're in second.
Yeah, no, and I think that's been the argument, isn't it? And you know, and it's a valid argument, to the fact that we're not playing too well. You know, we're still grinding results out. You know, it's not like we're losing games, which is a bonus. Going back to how we played, you know, last season when we was, you know, so open, it's been nice that we are a little bit more, you know, we're a lot more solid. You know, I do feel like we've got players who want to play for the shirt a little bit more. Yes. And undoubtedly, when you get relegated from the Premier League, you're going to lose quality. But I felt the way we handled the transfer window, we've lost too much quality. And I think people are realizing now that we had a poor transfer window. You'll get people, and they're entitled to their opinion, defending pace. To the till. And in my opinion, we got the transfer window wrong. We left Parker too short, and we've left, and you know, we're kind of like scrambling the last few days, and it's clear to see the quality that we brung in is nowhere near as high as what we had in that Vincent Kompany season. And a lot of people's arguments to us not playing well is, well, it's, you know, Burnley fans are entitled, you know, we've become entitled now, or, you know, we've got used to our company playing in the Championship. And I don't think that's not my opinion personally. I'd have to go look back at we've got like 3 goals in like 5 or 6 games or something like that. So Burnley fans have got every right to say that the football or the creativity is not good enough at the moment. And going into that second half, we didn't look like scoring. You know, George has put in a stat, we've scored 8 in the last 10. And in the last few games, you know, we have looked, in my opinion, a little bit clueless in how to break teams down. And it's going to be interesting to see how we go, perhaps away at West Brom. You know, who, and the game might be opened up a little bit, and it might help somebody like Koleosho, like it did away at Leeds. But for me, we've got to take a little bit more risks. You know, ultimately, to win football matches, you've got to take risks. You've got to get players into the box. You know, you've got to be a little bit more creative with your play. At the moment, it's very, very predictable. It's literally side, out wide to the side, back into the middle, back to the side. Okay, we're not quite got a perfect position there, back into the middle, back to the side. And because fullbacks aren't overlapping, I know Roberts played quite well at the weekend in that inverted fullback role, which isn't my cup of tea, really. You know, I prefer fullback who gets forward and overlaps, and we're not doing that. And people talk about Koleosho, him not playing well, but a lot of the time he's receiving a lot of slow ball. And what I mean by slow ball is, it's kind of like it's not played with any intensity. It's slowing the build-up play, and he's often getting the ball 30, 40 yards from goal, and he's getting the midfielder coming across to him, the fullbacks engage with him. So he's playing against two players. I don't think it makes a blind bit of difference if he plays on the left either, in my opinion, because the ball to him will be exactly the same.
Yeah.
So there's a lot for Parker to work on. I'm trying to stay balanced here and say it is a new team and he's been not left an easy hand, which is not. And I think he's done a good job so far. And I really like him as a person. I really want him to do well.
Yeah.
As well, I think it's also ignorant to ignore what Fulham and Bournemouth fans said about his style of play. And this is my opinion now, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. I don't think we'll get massively better in terms of a little bit more attacking and entertaining. And for me at the moment, it's on the side of being too boring. I can't lie. Whether that makes me entitled or not. I was born in 1993, so I wasn't around for the Leyton Orient game. I do apologise that I can't reference.
Sounds like a Taylor Swift intro.
But I go back to, I manage our sixth form team at college, and the football that the lads playing there is far more exciting than watching Burnley at the moment.
Yeah. No, I get it. Completely get it.
And where I am with Burnley, I don't think we're a bad team. And I think we'll do okay this season. I think we'll get playoffs. But my word, it is not good to watch. And I don't care, and everyone's got their entitled to their own opinion on that. But I am somebody who is so passionate about Burnley. I'm so engaged with a Burnley game. You ask my wife and people who watch Burnley with me. If I'm not at the game, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm pacing around the living room through family reasons. Having a daughter, I've not been to as many games this season, so I've been at home a little bit more watching it, and I'm literally slumped in my chair watching it. My heart is down because it is boring. It's predictable. You know what's going to happen, and you kind of knew you wasn't going to break QPR down in the end. And I know I've talked quite a long time, but I think that's my way of kind of summarising where I think we are. And going back to your original point, we're second in the league now, but the form table suggests we're sixth in the league. And I think that's about where we are as a side right now, taking out them 2 wins.
That's what you said. I knew you'd said something like that, and I couldn't quite remember what it was that you said. Yes, you're right. It's like, the league table is there for a reason. But looking at that form table, if we carry on the way we are, then we might be lucky if we get into the playoffs. Rich, you summed that up really, really well, and I'm not gonna let you go out on a limb there and say that by yourself. I completely agree with everything that you're saying, and I'm going to also hang my hat on that, and I'm quite prepared for people to come at us for us. Yes, it feels entitled, but ultimately I've always been in the camp that entertainment is a really important factor for me for football. I go to the game to enjoy it, to escape for a couple of hours. It's a lot of money that we spend on our football club, and we aren't armchair fans. We go to games home and away, and we want to be entertained for 90 minutes. I said that, regular listeners will remember I was saying that in the latter end of the Dyche years, that I was getting fed up with Dyche football. Now, it was a little bit, there is a slight difference there in that even more so back then, the results were very important in the Dyche era because we were clinging on to that Premier League survival, and that was before the club was bought, and we were in, we had to stay up. So I understand the slight nuance there, but for the first time in a long time, when I was going to the game at the weekend, I was like, oh, I'm really not looking forward to this. I went there as a supporter. I went there because I'm loyal to my club and that I will show up for them. But the fan in me knew that it was going to be really hard work to watch. George,
of course you can. Go ahead. I really do apologise, Joyce. Just going back to the entitled thing. And again, if people want to call me entitled for this, I'm fine. But I think too many supporters have a little old Burnley mentality.
Yes,
going back to that Orient game in the mid-2000s under Cottrell. We've been a Premier League side for, people can call me on the maths, like 8 to 9 season out to like 11 or 12.
Yeah, it is. 9 out of 12, isn't it? I think.
Last time. So I think we need to get out of that headspace that, we're little old Burnley. This board want us to be Premier League football.
They want us to be Champions League. Hurrah! Let's get on that train. I'm all for that.
So to me, the entitlement of wanting to play well and beat, and this isn't no respect to QPR as a football club, but like a team who was second bottom or bottom before that game at home is absolutely fine. And I think as a club, Burnley are extremely patient overall. And
we are.
Like I said, a certain section of people still have that little old Burnley mentality. And we need, and in my opinion, we need to shift that. And I don't know what it looked like at the ground. Like I said, I was on telly, I had stuff going on with family at the weekend. It looked like there was more empty seats to me watching it on the telly. I don't know how.
No, the ground felt full to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe it was just slightly.
I know speaking to people about Burnley, and especially people who have large distances to travel, it does get easier to miss games when it's like this. And I wouldn't miss them normally if it wasn't for having a daughter. But I think, I don't know, it's a really fine line at the moment with appreciating what Parker's got. The squad isn't as good, being appreciative of, us being solid as a unit, which was needed after last year. But this football is boring. And I think you and Tom touched on it on the pod last week. That's the way modern football's gone. Ultimately, it is a bit more dull now.
Yeah.
And my love for watching football is slowly but surely tailoring a little bit because of the way it's gone. And I think you've seen that on Twitter at the moment with all like the Barclaysman stuff and that people are wanting that old style to come back. And
I think this is a football problem, not a Burnley problem, Rich. I think I've been saying for a while now that the Premier League as a brand has got problems because it's too dull. The Premier League is really, really dull, and it's slowly filtering down through the leagues as more and more ex or newly relegated Premier League sides in the Championship, the pressure to go up becomes too much. Everybody wants to be Pep, so Pep's style of football is now absolutely ruining the game, and everybody is bored of it. We're gonna bench Steele for a little bit now. Shush. No, it's fine. No, listen, I am only jesting. George, let's give you the little George is doing the sub symbol for those listening on a podcast. George, let's give you the floor for a little bit. Some absolutely fantastic and really heartfelt points there from Rich, as we would expect from the man that we know and love, our inherited Wiganer. I'm going to throw you a slight hospital pass before I let you have the floor to come through your comments, though. Rich has given Parker a free pass there, and I think he's right in that Parker has been given a really crappy hand with regards to the players he's been given. But I'm going to pass it to you that actually, is there a deeper problem here in that Parker's football is dull and we aren't going to improve, and the things that the Bournemouth and Fulham fans warned us of are already coming to light? Can you maybe take the other side of the debate and say, well, is this predominantly to do with Parker Ball? Is this all we can expect? And how has that got him so successfully out of the Championship before? Can you take that side of it for us?
Oh, yeah, I'll prepare my dissertation now.
Sorry, George.
I think I saw a really good tweet. I can't remember who did it, but I liked his tweet of the context around this season so far, in that the football has been awful, right? The last 5 games or whatnot. But when Parker had a really good team for those first 2 or 3 games, we were exceptional, and we blew sides away, and we played different kinds of football against Luton. We went over the top and we went long. We played through the lines a lot. And then we played whoever we played next. And we did play a lot different. We passed it on the ground a lot more. There was varied play. There was exciting football. There were goals. And that was a very good team. We then had the Sunderland week where the club openly admits, I think, they said, it was a tough week for the club because there was a transfer window. After that week, with the squad we've got now, it has been tough. And I think it doesn't take a genius to work out that the squad is significantly worse in quality than last season. Probably with better coaching, may I add, than last season, because look at the way we set up. It's been really hard to break down, but it's worse quality-wise than last season, and it's worse than the season prior to that. So I think Rich's points are bang on with that, and I think Parker has had a tough hand. Now, it doesn't excuse some of the. I guess it doesn't do away with the criticisms from Bournemouth and Fulham fans, because they watched Parker Ball, for want of a better term, for a while. I would temper what they say with the fact that I do think those 2 fan bases are particularly entitled about style of football and what they think is the Fulham way. I don't think that's Burnley, and like Rich says, we are more patient. But to Rich's point there about the attendance, it was the second lowest attendance out of the 6 home games so far this season.
Was it? It felt really full to me.
It wasn't significantly worse. It was like a few hundred less than the game prior. You know, but it was the second lowest of 6. And I will make a point to say at full time, the boos were significant. Like the fans are turning.
Were. Oh, now I don't boo at all, but
no,
I had not sympathy. I understood where it had come from on the weekend.
Yeah, like so it's absolutely. I think Rich has got bang on there. I think people are fed up with it already, or turning, or a bit bored, and it is easier when it's boring to not go. You know, Millwall, you know, another get on a Sunday, trying to travel down to London, Hull in midweek going to Hull, and then last week getting charged 40 quid to go to Sheffield Wednesday for a 3 o'clock kickoff. Like there's so many factors which are pulling you away from football at the moment. Cost of living crisis adding to that as well. What are the pull factors? And for me, watching that kind of football, and I'm probably the biggest defender of it in our group chat, but watching that kind of football isn't a pull factor, and it does point to the wider issues in the game of everyone's trying to play this style of football that I don't know. I think the football world's been conned. I don't find it entertaining. I didn't find Vincent Kompany football entertaining for the most part. Yeah, we'd win a lot of games 3-4-0 and we'd score goals, but for 70% of the time we had the ball under Kompany, it was sideways passing. It was just in between the centre backs. It was very similar. The difference was we were a better team. We were probably better coached going forward, and that quality came together to create a team that was exceptional. But for the most part, I strongly believe the DNA of this football isn't too dissimilar to back then. And
that's a really interesting point.
I think Connor Roberts' points back that up. So I think that's kind of where I am in the sort of judgment of Parker as a manager so far.
I think that's they're really good points. I guess my question then to you, George, then becomes, if he's only 6, like what does Parker need to do in these early stages to turn this side away from drawing too many games to winning them? Because you don't need 100 and whatever points to win the title. We don't even need to win the title. As a quick pause there, I think I'd quite like to win the title this year, because I'm not sure that any side has won a hat-trick of back-to-back championship titles, and the last 2 times we've been in the championship, we've won it both times. To be a 3rd consecutive title, I think would just be a really nice little history stat. We didn't manage to get the highest scoring team over the line under Kompany, but it would be nice to do something. But listen, I don't really care. You know, 2nd is absolutely fine. But the form table is only 6, and he obviously has got really good record of getting sides out of the championship. So is it simply a case that he has just been left with no attacking threat in that side, and that will be rectified in the summer? Or do you think he does have to tweak some things? George, that's to you. Stop muting. Come on. Oh, okay. Listeners who are on he's here. I was just going to explain to our podcast listeners who haven't got the visuals what on earth was going on with you clicking too many buttons on your laptop and not being able to speak. Please continue, young George.
To provide context, it's a bit of an old laptop now, and it was overheating, and it was like mission control was failing. But I'm back now, and I think a balanced response to what you say would be to say it's a bit of both, isn't it? I think the squad is, in terms of attacking talent, is poor. It's really poor. I mean, you watch at the weekend and you're bringing on Hound Tonji. Oh my word, I've not seen a worse player play for Burnley up front since Frederick Nimini back in, you know, the early 2010s. That fella we got from City. He looks clueless at times.
That's your reference point. What? Where? What? I don't even remember that guy. Where's that come from?
I just remember watching him. I remember watching him for the under-21s, and he was a proper useless striker. But so I don't want to go too harsh on the lad. He's not had that much time, but I don't see it with him. So that's one striker that I don't think's improving us at all. Jay Rodriguez, to his credit, I think he's the one who comes on and he puts himself about, and you were never going to question. We're never going to question his commitment to Burnley at all. But it is just a fact that I think he's definitely way past his best days, and also he's being asked to come on and sort of shunt out to the wing, which I really don't understand at all. For me, just taking the QPR game in isolation, it was pretty obvious by the 55th, 60th minute, nothing was going to happen unless something changed in how we approached the game. For the last half an hour, we should have had 2 strikers on the pitch, Rodriguez and Fleming, ideally, both of whom would be in the box, and we'd be peppering them with crosses. We saw at times how good Fleming is at using his body and working his way into an opportunity. We saw his header at Hull, just for a start. Fantastic header, great way to equalise. We should have been peppering that box for the last 30 minutes, but we weren't. We were just continuing with a slow build-up, with the passing around the back. And there's a time and place for that. There definitely is, because we do draw teams in, and then there's the opportunity to really move up the pitch and pace. So I'm not completely against that at all. But there just needs to be an alternate plan. There needs to be an acceptance that sometimes what we start a game with isn't going to be how we end the game with. So there does need to be changes tactically. There needs to be different patterns of play, because I think it is very predictable. But at the same time, we've got to sort of understand that he's probably he's protecting a back line that is still getting to know each other, and he's got an attacking talent that is pales in comparison. Jadon Anthony, to his credit, has got a couple of really good assists in recent weeks with good crosses.
I like him.
But for the most part, for me, he doesn't create enough. But that's fine. That's fine, because he's not a world beater. He's not going to be a world beater, in my opinion. And it's what makes Koleosho a bit more frustrating, because we can all see there's a player there, but there's just been no end product since the Luton game, really, and he is really struggling. So it's a mix of both for me in terms of how we're struggling attacking wise, but it's making for a tough watch, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Rich, what on earth are we going to do this Sunday coming up? We've got Millwall away at the Den, a side that are pretty much a standard championship side you can get, coming into their 8th consecutive championship side, very mid-table, but a side that what I would call is championship savvy. They know how the league works, they know how to play in it, they know how to survive in it each year. They probably are a side that won't necessarily stick 11 men behind the ball. They don't necessarily pass it around a lot. They like to get the ball up front quite quickly and very direct. And we have no recognised strikers for the weekend. Foster's still injured, and obviously Fleming can't play because he's on loan. What on earth are we going to do at the weekend?
Yeah, I think going back, there's one part of that is that like you don't feel like we're going to go away to these clubs and get bullied anymore. I think that's
very true, actually. Yeah,
to give some credit to part, not some
defensively we're great. Defensively,
we are good. Again,
central midfield we're great.
Yeah, the style of play does help that. But even, little things like, I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure we've not conceded a goal from a set piece this year, which when you look at what we was like last year, we literally every ball into the box, we looked like we was going to concede. It was pretty funny watching Ipswich on Saturday, wasn't it, with O'Shea and Murich? It was like carbon copy.
Can I just pause there, Rich? Who in the Ipswich scouting rooms looked at Burnley last season and went, no, what would be a great idea for us next year?
This will be controversial. I can see it with Murich, even though he's mad as a box of frogs. If you put all them tools together consistently, I think he can be a really good goalkeeper, but he doesn't do it enough, doesn't he? And O'Shea, for me, I said it last year, all the way through, got pelters for it, especially towards the end of the season. O'Shea's just not good enough for the Premier League. Good championship player, and he was really good for us in the first 2 games that he played, and I think he'd improve us now. But yeah, he's not Premier League, and like I said, I think we can go on and have debates on style of play, like with Ipswich and Southampton and etc. But going back to it, at least we do look like we can. We're not going to get bullied. We'll be able to compete physically. I think that's a reason why he's played Hannibal too, even though it's not quite gelled yet. And I think, but yeah, the up front one is you're probably going to have to play Rodriguez up front, aren't you?
He's not got.
I agree with George, and it's really harsh, and there'll be people who are kind of saying, well, don't judge somebody too early, obviously with Hatonji, but you're looking at 3 or 4 million, and I know it's a big difference going from league and that's number 2 in it in French. It's a while since I've done my GCSE French. Playing for Rodez on loan because his initial club in League the thought he wasn't good enough. And he just like the ball come into him twice, and the ball just like nearly went over the halfway line. And at that point, I was like, you just got to try and not get too annoyed, have you? Because it is what it is. So I think Jay will probably go up front unless he goes some mad formation and puts like Brownell up front or something like that. But I think the simpler option is go Jay up front. And I completely agree with George. Like, you've got Jay, who's obviously past his best now, but he can still probably header the ball, find a good yard of space because he's a very intelligent footballer. Just get some bloody crosses into the box. Like, it's not rocket science, is it? Put a team under pressure. If you put crosses into the box, it means the defensive team gets deeper. Players like Collie Osho then can get in areas that they want to and attack the bar line and get crosses in, and you get then you get like your likes like Brownell and log on in the midfield running onto second balls at the edge of the box, and and it's not doing when we're not doing that. And I think that's the frustrating part for me is that with Parker, and a lot of managers now, there's no like plan B. So a lot of substitutes are like quite like for like, or even if you tweak the formation a little bit, it's still that patient build up, and you've got to, and if it's not worked for 60 minutes, you've got to go away and do something different. So I fully agree with George there. I watched Wigan and Blackpool last night, and to me, it's not a question of like the quality at times to make a game interesting. It's how it's played. In Blackpool last night, they were 2-0 down, especially the last 10 minutes. They got a last-minute goal. Granted, it was a bit fortunate because Wigan scored 2 own goals, but they got crosses into the box, into dangerous areas, and slowly but surely they built the pressure up on Wigan. Now,
that was a good game. That
like I agree with George. There's times where first half you don't want to be like all helter-skelter. There's times for that patient build-up, but with half an hour, 20 minutes to go, and it's blatantly obvious that we're not going to break teams down. We know what we need to do, and like I said, it's going to be. I don't see how we might score off a set piece, or you never know. Someone can hit a ball from 25 yards. Brownell can have a shot and it deflects and go in, so you can always score. But at the same time, with that lack of striker, you're kind of thinking, how are we going to go? But like I said, if Jay does go well, and you think, okay, we've played him from the start, he can still offer something. It might give us that opportunity to play Fleming on number 10 until Foster's fit, because that's the one thing I'm holding on to is if you can, when Foster's fit, who's not been great this season, if you can maybe get Fleming 10 and Foster up front, it may do something. But I'm not holding my hat on that. So going to Millwall, kind of put it this way, I'll be putting, I might be putting a tenner on Burnley Millwall under 2.5 goals again, like I've been doing for the last few games.
I think you'd need to put more than a tenner on to win a quid back, mate.
Anyone wants? I'm not promoting gambling.
Yes, can we just be very careful here? Listeners, gamble responsibly. And this is not an official gambling channel.
But Swansea game and Burnley game this weekend under 2.5 double.
Well done. Very well done. Very well done.
That's a sensible bet for you.
I love it. Yes, please gamble responsibly and within your means, listeners. George, I guess taking all of that into account, I guess one thing we just need to be aware of is the Championship's a long old season and nothing really happens in it until you get to around February time anyway. So actually, as long as we are somewhere near the top 6 towards the end of the season, do we just ignore all of this and just not worry about it until we get to the end of the January transfer window and see where we are?
I don't think fans are happy. I don't think that will satisfy fans, and the fans are a massive part of the game. We saw on Saturday, we drew a game, right, to go to stay second or to go second, a week after getting a good win away at Sheffield Wednesday, and the boos were audible. They were beyond audible. They were quite harsh and heavy, particularly where I was anyway in the long side upper. So fans aren't going to be content with that, I'm afraid. In watching this kind of football week in, week out, we've mentioned it's expensive to go to games. I took my mate from London. It was his first. It was the furthest north he's ever been. So he was duck out of water, bless him. But he was paying, good money to go and be in the north, the long side upper, and he expected to watch a better game than that. Let me tell you, the first half was all right, but he looked like he had the life drained out of him by full time, and that's going to be the perspective of many Burnley fans who are on these games. So, no, it's not good enough to just stumble through to the end of the season, and we've got to hope that these performances will pick up, with an understanding that we're still second. We've been stumbling along really for the best part of 10 games down. We're still second in the league, and we're set up really well. We remember under Dyche when we won the league in 2016, we got battered on Boxing Day at Hull, and it left us 5th, a long way short, and we then went on a run. Now we'd be asking for a lot to go on a similar run now, but we just need to be in and around, but with good performances. There does need to be a balance, and I'm absolutely certain Scott Parker will appreciate that and will understand that. He's a switched on guy.
Do you think it'll get better, George? Genuine question.
Not particularly, no, because I don't think there's enough quality. My biggest issue is there's no quality, and you can't hang your hat on January, because who on earth is selling a striker that is good enough for a top-end championship team in January?
This was a point I was going to make, and I think I mentioned it in our WhatsApp group or maybe on my Twitter. One thing Parker had, he had Mitrovic at Fulham, and he still only went up in the playoffs, and he scored a gazillion goals. And he had Solanke at Bournemouth, who scored a lot of goals. So with that style of play, you're relying on a bit of a goal scorer, and we've not got that, and that's what worries me. And like George said, there's not a lot of strikers about, and you're not gonna, and you're not gonna, and teams aren't really gonna release the top class players. That's why, and all that saga we had with trying to get Whittaker from Plymouth. I'm amazed we got Fleming, to be fair, because of how we dealt with our transfer business. Wasn't the right way. So this is what worries me is kind of like a lot of people are thinking, it's a new team. Granted, I agree with that. When you play football with players you don't know, it is difficult. But at the same time, what worries me, it's not because of what's happening now, is I just don't think it'll get better. And that's where I'm a bit like, it's hard to, I've kind of got this feeling that it's gonna, this season might end up, with promotion. If it does, that's the aim, isn't it? But I'm just not, I can't get away from how I feel. And I don't like feeling like this, and other people may feel it different, but I'm just not enjoying it.
No, same.
And I can't, and that's how I am at the moment. I think it's probably a result of last season being so hard too. It's just not, I'm not, maybe I am entitled, maybe I've got a little bit spoiled, who knows, but I'm just not really enjoying it now, to be fair. So, and that's where I am.
Oh, this is a sad end. This is a sad end to our podcast. We don't want to be.
Well,
we get it. We
football is an emotional roller coaster.
Yes,
if we go to Millwall and all of a sudden it clicks, and when we win by 3, when we win 3-0, it is a different podcast, and that's why we love football, because of the emotional roller coaster. Like I said, I watched Wigan Blackpool last night, and you mentioned it before, Natalie. I am a Wiganer, and a few of my mates went, and they was high as kites at half time, and we're 2-0 up, and then you can see 2 own goals and it's 2-2, and they're lower than a snake's belly, and that's football, innit? And it is the highs and the lows of it all. But at the moment, it feels like it just feels tough. It feels hard, Yeah,
it does. George, pull us out of it before we finish off and let our listeners go. Pull us out of it. What positives have we got to live? We're second in the league. We've put one of the favourites to go up. We've got a fantastic manager who's a lovely guy at the helm. Give us some positives to end the podcast on, will you? Before we have to give Rich a hug.
Yeah, we definitely should make mention of CJ Egan Riley. Absolutely,
yes.
Because
great performance of the weekend.
He was excellent, and it wasn't just his defensive work. It was his passing and it surprised me, because he's given me the impression of a solid centre back who's a bit limited in his passing, and that's absolutely fine to be for a championship defender. But his passing on the ball on Saturday was fantastic, and really enjoyed that. Esteve, goes without saying, you just get a really good performance from him every week, and I think we've got to appreciate sometimes when you watch a player like that. We've seen Jordan Bayer at the moment, who's we've got a long-term injury, and you're missing him so much, because he was just it was so enjoyable to watch him play. So you've just got to appreciate the positives, like we're saying, where we can. And in Esteve, in particular, we're seeing a fantastic player play for Burnley. Going into the midfield, been happy to see more Josh Laurent in recent weeks. I think he's been a revelation almost. You bring a 29-year-old in from Stoke for $500,000, who, by the way, a lot of their fans were seemingly happy to see the back of, and he's been tremendous. He's got such great physicality about him, and he's got great drive and endeavour to get us up the pitch. So there's definitely performances which are to be enjoyed, despite the larger picture of it being a bit gloomy and a bit tough to watch. You know, like Rich says, if we go to Millwall and get a couple of quick goals, and all of a sudden we get a good win, this podcast will be a lot different next week. And yeah, that's the beauty of football. No matter how much Pep Guardiola wannabes want to destroy our love for the game, we'll still be here. We'll still be here and emotionally tied and emotionally invested. So yeah, really, there are positives to be taken.
There really are.
The
Excellent.
quicker Pep goals out of English football, the better. And everyone will stop
Well,
trying
it might
to
be coming into proper English football. It might be better the England job at some point.
He said this in the group. He's a genius. He's got everyone playing his boring, woke ball style of football, and nobody wants it anymore. We want to go back to 4-4-2, proper football. None of this nonsense that we're seeing anymore. Get Kitely back on the wing and Volks up front and Ings.
I'd have Volks back.
We would have Volks back. It'd be better than Hitonji.
Yeah, listen, my dad would be better than Hitonji at the moment with a broken foot. So there we go. Listeners, that is all we have time for this week. We hope that there's been food for thought. We are very aware that it's been a little bit of a sad podcast this week, but I think we are reading the room. I think that's pretty reflective of how some of the fans are feeling. Not all. There's a lot of fans that quite enjoy defensive tactical football. I know Tom Whittaker's one of those. He's not maybe enjoying this at the moment, but you know, we don't. There'll be people who think differently. So you know what you need to do, listeners. You need to get in touch. You can make a comment in the channel below, please. Those of you who are watching on our YouTube channel, while you are there, please subscribe and turn on notifications. It does help our channel grow. And for those of you who are listening on our podcast channels, drop us a line to the usual social media channels. Good, bad, whatever. Let us know what you think. Are you actually enjoying this football, or do you not care in the slightest? And as long as we're in that top 6 in the Premier League next season, we can throw performances out of the window. We accept all opinions, whether we agree with them or not. So please do get in touch. We'll be back with the preview show this Friday night, looking ahead to that trip to the Den at the weekend. And next week, we'll put some content out on the international break to see how the Clarets fare coming into the winter months. Please don't forget to subscribe, as I've mentioned before, and keep an eye on social medias for your next episode. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.
The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.